The floor was literally lava during the Harmattan season, and I regret not making this earlier. I made one for my mom in the past, and that was all. I did not make for myself, and I am glad I made this now because I am ready to face another Harmattan season or another cold season because the floor was so cold. Let's get to the things we need in order to get this done. So we need a pattern paper, we need our fabrics. I am using an old dress, that is the red, and the other one is more of a teddy bear fabric than a fur fabric. I don't like to call it fur, I like to call it teddy bear fabric. I am going to be using an old slippers as my template in order to trace out and get my design. And also I am going to be using a foam. The foam, I decided to double it because I wanted that puffiness. Okay, and also we are going to be using ever foam or marco. This is a light one, you can decide to use a thick one. I use this one because that was what I had available in the house, but you can decide to use a thick one if you want. Let's get the pattern done. So guys, for the pattern I am going to trace the old slippers out. That is going to be like the foundation. So after tracing I am going to add 1 inch seam allowance. You can decide to add half an inch if you want. That is like the basic, adding half an inch to it, but I decided to add 1 inch because I wanted mine to be big and puffy, like I wanted that big chunky look. So half inch for seam allowance and half inch for ease because I didn't want mine to be tight. But you can do whatever you want. Okay, do whatever you want. So now I am going to go ahead and mark my midpoint. This is the right fit. To get the left, all we have to do is turn it over and that will give us the left instead of wasting paper and drafting 2 separate patterns. So I am going to go ahead and mark my midpoint on all 4 corners. So now I am going to use an old calendar to trace out the top pattern or to draft the top cover of our indoor footwear. So what I am going to do is that I am just going to trace the the previous pattern we have, like so. I am going to mark out that midpoint we marked out earlier. I am going to trace from one point to another and I am going to connect both points with my ruler. And guys, I'm sorry for the flies that you can see in the video. I am recording outside, there was no light and I could not wait, like I had to stop waiting for NEPA to bring the light, so I just went outside to record instead. So I wanted mine to start and stop where the strap of my slippers was. That was why I was taking the measurement, and when I took the measurement I discovered that that was not right because I wanted the strap to end up, or I wanted the strap and the top cover to have like similar length. So what I did was that I had to figure out the middle on the slippers. That's the middle we marked out on the paper. I had to figure it out on the slippers. Then I had to like measure from that point to know how many inches that I am going to add to my pattern in order for it to end up where the slipper strap is. I hope you guys understand. So I needed to add about 2 inches more in order to give me that look that I was going for, but this is totally optional, guys. This is not necessary at all. You can decide to just go with what you have, just mark out the middle like so, and that's it for you. But I was going for a particular look because I wanted that oversized look. Yeah, that was what I wanted. I wanted the oversized look, and yeah, that was it. So I decided to add 2 inches and I extended it to the new line, to the new mark, and I connected the dot to give me a straight line. So after doing that, the next thing I had to do was figure out the curve of the middle, because like I said, I was going for a particular look and I didn't want the straight. So this is the right. To get the left, all you have to do is turn it over and you have the left, instead of drafting one pattern twice and wasting pattern paper. So now what I was doing was figuring out the midpoint. That way I would be able to get the middle, so I can draft out the curve. So for the curve, I didn't really get the curve I wanted until the curve got about where the initial middle was. I don't know if you guys understand, but that was how I curved it, and I was not satisfied till it got to the first line. Okay, but feel free to do you don't need a curve. Trust me, you do not need a curve. Okay, you can just do it straight like that if that is what you want. All right. So after cutting it out, I traced out the pattern on a new paper and I added 1 inch and quarter on both sides. I connected it to the main top cover, to the main pattern we had, and I added ½ inch for seam allowance, but this is totally optional. So I decided to also curve it, but this was after I had cut out the pattern, so the curve was not on the slippers that I made. But when I make it next time, now that I have the curve, I would really like that. So for the pattern cuttings, or for the pieces we need 2 pieces for the marco, right and left. Then we need 2 pieces each for the foam, 2 pieces for the right, 2 pieces for the left, in order to give us that fluff. Then for the 4 or teddy bear fabric, 2 pieces, one for the right, one for the left. Then for the top cover, 2 pieces each, 2 for the right, 2 for the left. And for the foam, 1 piece, one for the right, one for the left. And for the top band, the length is the length of our top cover and the width is 2 inches. So the length is the length of the top cover all around, and the width is 2.5 inch. So it is 2 inches but ½ inch for sewing allowance. Okay, I hope you guys understand. And of course our 2-inch bias tape fabric for bias tape. So that is all the pieces we are going to cut. Let's get this party started and let's start to sew. I already glued the foam to the marco. I had to cut one of the foam about ½ inch inward so that my sewing machine will be able to take it. So the foams are in the marco. I use my contact cement, my glue, to glue it together, and I'm going to put my 4 or teddy bear fabric, but I'm just going to keep calling it 4 because I was supposed to use 4, but I had to use what I have. So I am going to sew it. We are just doing like a basting stitch, not really a serious stitch. So this is just a basting stitch in order to hold all our pieces together. So I had skip stitches because I forgot to change my needle. It was later and I realized I was using the wrong needle size. So here is the foam for the top cover and our 2 pieces for the top cover. Okay, our 2 pieces of fabric for the top cover and our 4 that we are going to use as the band. So that was that for, or that is that for the sole. So now we are going to work on the top cover. So I'm just going to fold my band wrong sides touching each other lengthwise, and I am going to connect the band to one piece of the top cover like so. I am going to sew with ½ inch seam allowance. Now that I am done with that, I am going to add my foam, but first I decided to pin the foam to the fabric in order to have like a more stabilized pieces to work with. So I am going to do that first. After pinning the foam to the fabric, I am going to bring the other top cover fabric and I am going to place it on the other fabric, right sides touching each other. So the fabric with the band is on top of our foam and the other fabric is on top of the other fabric. I hope you guys understand what I am saying. God. So I'm just going to pin them down and I am going to sew. Now that I am done sewing, I am just going to notch all my corners, notch all my curves, trim the excess seam allowance, and I am going to bring the top fabric and I am going to flip it so that it is underneath the foam. So the foam is in between two fabrics. So after doing that, I am going to pin all the pieces together and I am going to sew them using a basting stitch just to hold them in place. So this is it guys, I am done sewing them together or basting them together. So now I am going to look for the midpoint on my top cover and the midpoint on the sole of the slippers. Okay, so after looking for the midpoint, I am going to connect them together, I am going to clip them together, and I am going to sew the top of the slippers to the bottom of the slippers with half an inch sewing allowance. So at this point, I advise that you bring the two feet together. If you've sewn one feet before, if this is the final fit you're sewing, you bring them together and make sure that they are aligned and everything is in the right place and they're matching. Okay, I don't know if you guys understand, I didn't do that and they were not matching at the end. So now I am going to top stitch the top and the bottom. Here it is. Feel free to adjust, trim, or do whatever you want in order to get the results that you want. So this is my 2-inch bias strip. One end is already folded. I don't know if you guys can see that. So guys, I am going to sew the bias strip to my slippers in order to hide all the rough edges, and that's it guys, we are done with this DIY. How simple was that? If you like this video and if it was explanatory enough, do not forget to give me a thumbs up. I really need that. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let us keep the DIY community growing. And if you end up trying this DIY, please use the hashtag DIY with Juliet on Instagram or on Facebook so that I can see your works and I can repost it. Okay. So guys, my big chunky and oversized, not so oversized indoor slippers is ready, and I am ready to face the next Harmattan season or the next cold weather. See you in my next video guys.